This is Matt at Mario's Tire Shop, and you're watching Picks with David.
And it's week 2 in the NFL, and you're watching Picks with David. Hey, thanks for joining me. Quick recap of week 1 along with Thursday night football. We're now up to a 5-2 record as we begin this weekend. And, as usual, we have a 5-pack of games for you here on Sunday to discuss. And we'll begin with our first game, the Washington Commanders at the Detroit Lions. Of course, the Washington Commanders, the former Redskins, and of course the football team, has a brand new quarterback this year, and that's in the form of Carson Wentz. He spent one season in Indianapolis after being jettisoned by the Philadelphia Eagles. And, they just didn't feel like his leadership was what they were looking for in Indianapolis. But he starts the season with a win last week as they were able to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, he's got some players he can get the ball to. Curtis Samuel came over from Carolina last year. They've got Terry McLaurin, and then they drafted rookie Johan Dotson. So there's an array of wide receivers on the offensive side. Antonio Gibson is their starting running back, and he's done well as their lead runner. When it comes to the defense, now they lost Landon Collins in the offseason. He'll be replaced this year by Kareem Curl, and he is a third-year player out of Arkansas who has really started to step up, and that's why they felt like it was all right to let Collins go. And they're coming into Detroit. Detroit hung in there this last week and played very well against the Philadelphia Eagles. Just too many turnovers. They let Philadelphia get out to a big lead in that game, and they managed to fight their way back, but they just couldn't claw their way all the way back into that game. But when it comes to Jared Goff, he has some receivers there. They have a strong running game. Unfortunately, they're going to be without DeAndre Swift. And so we're going to see a lot of Jamal Williams and also probably see quite a bit of Craig Reynolds, who is a, pretty good running back, was a guy that they didn't want to cut. They definitely wanted to keep if you were watching Hard Knocks. And so defensively, Aiden Hutchinson made his presence felt. The defense did so-so, but when you give up 38 points, some of that was on the turnovers by the offense, but a lot of it had to do with the defense just couldn't stop the Eagles last week. Will they be able to stop Washington? I don't know, but because they're playing at home, I wasn't really impressed with the victory by the Washington Commanders against Jacksonville. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions to win this particular game. Game number 2 of this Sunday is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints. And the Buccaneers come off of a kind of a so-so win against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. Dallas just didn't seem to have very many weapons because they traded away a lot of their receivers. The offensive line was porous. Dak Prescott got hurt. And so, it wasn't really an impressive performance by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady did his thing. He got all of his new weapons involved. Julio Jones. Now, Kyle Rudolph didn't play in that particular game, but they did manage to get quite a few balls thrown Cameron Brate's way at tight end. Defensively, they seem really stout. I don't think they're as good as they looked. I just think that Dallas didn't have any weapons. And so here they go on the road to the New Orleans Saints. And the Saints have won 4 of the last 5 matchups against the Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay Buccaneer team. And so last year the big trouble for New Orleans was that they just didn't have any wide receivers. And they rebounded with this group that they brought in here this year. You've got Michael Thomas coming back from a long-term injury. They drafted Chris Olave out of Ohio State, and they also brought in a local favorite, Jarvis Landry, who played at LSU in free agency. And so Jameis Winston's got a number of players he can get the ball to. We'll see Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram run the football. And then there's also the gadget guy in Taysom Hill. But this is all about the defense of the New Orleans Saints and their ability to stop the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Cameron Jordan's listed as questionable. I don't know if he's going to be able to play, but the pass rush must get to Tom Brady. If they get to Tom Brady, that's when he's at his most vulnerable. He doesn't get the ball out fast enough at times. The defensive backs are able to cover. And, defensively, one of the big moves that the Saints have made in the offseason is bringing in the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. He replaces Marcus Williams at safety, who left to go to the Baltimore Ravens. And so when I look at this particular game, Tampa was not impressive. New Orleans had to make a big comeback against Atlanta. But because New Orleans is playing at home, I'll take the New Orleans Saints to win the game Sunday. As we move on to our next game on Sunday, we've got a really interesting one here in the Miami Dolphins at the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Miami has given everything that they can around Tua Tagovailoa for him to prove that he is the quarterback for the long term there in Miami. They brought in Tyreek Hill. They have Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. Cedric Wilson comes in from the Dallas Cowboys. So they have quite an array of receivers for him to get the ball to. The offensive line is decent, and they're able to run the ball with lead back Chase Edmonds, who comes over from the Arizona Cardinals. Defensively, they've got some pretty good players, and it's a really good defense in Miami, led by Roquan Davis up front, Xavier Howard in the secondary. And so this is going to be a big-time matchup for the Baltimore Ravens at home. The Dolphins are kind of an upstart. They expect to make the playoffs with this new system under head coach Mike McDaniel. And, but Baltimore had a rough season last year. A lot of injuries. A lot of those players have come back. But, as far as the ability to make big plays, Devin Duvernay and Rashad Bateman are the receivers on the outside for Lamar Jackson, who's just as speedy as ever running the football. And they've got J.K. Dobbins back as the lead back there. Defensively, Patrick Queen and his group, they can really get after the quarterback. Luckily, Tua Tagovailoa has a little bit of mobility. And so this right here, I think this two teams are about as evenly matched as any game we're going to talk about this weekend. I think that Miami's got a real shot to win this game, but I think that when it all comes down to it, the experience and the mobility of Lamar Jackson, who's looking to sign a big-time contract here in this either during this season or in the offseason, that's going to be a big key factor here. He's still trying to prove to everybody, I'm the man and I deserve all that guaranteed money. And so I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens in this matchup as we move forward to our next game. Not nearly as big a matchup as it could have been had it not been for injuries, but we've got the Cincinnati Bengals and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys, of course, are going to be without Prescott, so you're looking at Cooper Rush, who's going to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys here, and he's still got CeeDee Lamb. You know, they've got Noah Brown, but they need to rely on their running game. They have two really good running backs in Tony Pollard, who really ought to be the starter, you know, and then Ezekiel Elliott, who would be a good, you know, change of pace. He's more of the power back of the two, whereas Pollard is the speedy guy. And, you know, they've got Dalton Schultz to throw the ball to underneath at tight end. Cooper Rush managed to win the game last year as a starter against the Minnesota Vikings. And I think that if the Dallas defense, you know, does what it can do, the offensive line of the Cincinnati Bengals didn't look any better with all the additions that they got last year, you know, in comparison to what they did last year. You know, their offensive line was porous. Now, I realize they were playing against a very good Pittsburgh Steelers front. The ball didn't bounce their way last week. They basically lost the game because their long snapper got hurt, and that made it possible for Pittsburgh to block the extra point at the end of regulation. So now, you know, looking here, you've got Joe Burrow, and of course he's got all his weapons. They should be the favored team because of the quarterback situation. They can run the ball with Joe Mixon. You know, they're going to get the ball down the field to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They've got it tight end. Hayden Hurst made a couple of big plays on Sunday last week. And so, for me, I look at this game, and you would think it would be a mismatch, but here's where everything comes to a head. Dallas has a great pass rush this year. You know, they've got a lot of players up front, Micah Parsons, you know, and then they've got, you know, DeMarcus Lawrence. And so up front, you know, they're going to get some pressure. I think because Dallas is playing at home, I think they've got a real shot to win this game. But I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals in this matchup. Finally, we've got Sunday Night Football on NBC. The Chicago Bears come to town 1-0 and tied for the lead in the division with the Vikings, who beat the Green Bay Packers last week in the opener. Now, last year in the opener, the Green Bay Packers went down and played against the New Orleans Saints in Jacksonville because of the hurricane, and they lost 38-3. This year they go to Minnesota and they lose the game there. And it looks like all hope is lost for the Green Bay Packers. But I think that at this particular time, you know, you can never take the first week into account in the NFL when it comes to some of these matchups. And the reason why is because they're just not playing their starters in the preseason. Kind of like what happened to the Rams, you know, against the Bills. I think the Rams were a better team than they let on in that particular game. And I think Green Bay was a better team, you know, than they let on against the Vikings. And so, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time, and I mentioned this in my preseason predictions, for the, you know, weapons that Green Bay has to become accustomed to Aaron Rodgers and vice versa. You know, he's got Christian Watson, Sammy Watkins, they've got Romeo Doubs, they've got, you know, Robert Tonyan has been there, so he does have kind of a safety blanket there, and they need to run the football. They have a two-headed monster in Aaron Jones and an A.J. Dillon, and so, you know, for me, I think that last week isn't necessarily a fluke, but it's a learning experience for their team as they go forward. Now, for the Chicago Bears, they played in the monsoon against the San Francisco 49ers with an unproven quarterback in San Francisco. Justin Fields made some big plays for them. They were able to run the football, and the defense looked pretty good against a team that usually can run the football at will. And so they're going to need that defense to step up in this game because they're playing in Green Bay. The fans are going to be hyped up. You know they're going to try and run the ball so they can open up the play-action passing game. And I think it's important if the defense plays well in this game, Chicago will have a real shot to win because Green Bay's still trying to figure things out on offense. Justin Fields can get the ball to some of his receivers there. He is a mobile quarterback. He can make things happen, move around and give himself some time to get the ball down the field or even pick up a few first downs running the football. But I think because of what happened last week, I wasn't convinced that Chicago was really great at anything because they were playing in that monsoon. And I think that last week, like I said, wasn't necessarily a fluke, but it's a learning experience for these receivers. Aaron Rodgers and them will get it figured out, and they're going to win the game against the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football. So there you have it, folks. Those are the picks, and that's going to bring us to our Spotlight Players of the Weekend. And we're going to start with Taysom Hill, who, like I mentioned before, he's a gadget guy. Last week, he ran the ball 4 times for 81 yards and a touchdown for the New Orleans Saints. He can play quarterback, he can play tight end, he can run the football, and they're going to need to make a few things happen, a few surprises here and there against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to help their offense because, I know the defense is going to do well. You expect that Tampa is going to play better than they did against Dallas. And so New Orleans is going to need all the offense that they can get. Taysom Hill can really provide a spark here and there. As for Christian Watson, the rookie from North Dakota State, he's going to be a focal point, I think, for the Green Bay offense this week. He dropped a potential 75-yard touchdown pass against the Green Bay Packers. He's got to learn to catch the football. This is the pros. And I think that, all receivers make mistakes. Jerry Rice started out dropping the football. Randy Moss dropped some passes. Terrell Owens dropped some passes early in his career. And so this is just a situation where you have a player that will eventually figure it out. The ball is just a bit different in the NFL than it is in college. And I think that with his great speed, he's going to really open up the offense for the running game. He'll get open. They're not necessarily going to double team him early in his career because they don't know exactly what he has. But I think he can make some big plays for Aaron Rodgers in the game here on Sunday Night Football. So there's your Week 2 picks with David. I sure appreciate everybody stopping in and watching my new videos this year. I hope you're enjoying watching them. Be sure to like and subscribe right here on YouTube. That way you don't miss any of my picks as we go throughout the season. We'll see you tomorrow for my Monday night picks.